Welcome back to the Hatton for Horrors podcast, where we review horror movies and horror franchises. I'm Mark,
I'm Tawan.
I'm Elion.
and today we're gathered to rank the movies of the X Trilogy. We finally wrapped up that franchise, and now we're doing my favorite part of the whole entire episode. So let's kick it off. Tawan, what do you have in your number 3 spot?
So number 3 will be the third movie, and that is Maxine. I wanted to really like Maxine a lot, because coming off the first two, they were really good, and the previews and everything leading up to it looked really good. I was excited hearing from, Mia Goth and T West about what they were kind of doing with it. The casting choices were sounding good. Everything was coming together. But once I actually watched the movie, it didn't come together. It really just didn't. And I really feel as though it's more on the writing end of it, like the script, and more so the story as a whole. It just did not come. It didn't. I will say, I guess you could say it did come full circle in a sense by the end for Maxine, but everything in between from until we actually get to the end, it wasn't really doing much. The cinematography and such was there. The movie looked really good. It did great with it did great with the '80s aesthetic. They were able to shoot on location in this one, because the other one, they had the other two, they shot in New Zealand, so they were able to shoot on location, get those actual really good LA shots. But that can't really make up for the story that we were given and how everything was portrayed here. And it kind of sucks, because I really wanted it to be better than what it was, and I ended up passing it in our review of Maxine, which didn't want to, but I had to, because it just didn't really live up to what I thought it would. Don't think it's
Elian? My bad.
sorry. Yeah, I don't think it's the worst movie ever, that type of thing. But in regards to these three, it's definitely the weakest out of the bunch.
Elian, what's in your third spot?
My third spot?
Yep.
Maxine, actually. I mean, I cashed it, but honestly, I would be like, it it could have been great if it wrapped up like Maxine's story, but it was not the same, as Pearl was, to be fair. And I felt like it was everywhere. And back to our previous one, I was just saying I didn't fully finish it, but after finishing the whole film, it was just I after watching I actually watched it 3 times. Um, I can definitely say it was out of all the three, this was my least favorite, I could say.
Well, it's going to be a 3 for 3 because Maxine's also at my bottom list. And like I said in our review, I thought this was going to be my favorite one because of the 80s aesthetic. And I'm like, they knocked Pearl out of the park, so Maxine has to be great. And like watching Maxine, I just want to repeat what Pearl said. Like, what makes you think like you deserve to be a star when I couldn't? Because shit, of these 3 movies, Pearl is the star. Maxine was not a good movie, and the Kevin Bacon of it all. And honestly, I'm just still mad that they went to the Psycho House and then do shit at the Psycho House. Like the whole setup was pointless. And Kevin Bacon was pointless. The dad being the serial killer. This old man is killing these young, hopefully strong women. No way. There's no way. There's no way. It's it's the bottom for me. And at number 2 for me, I have X. I I liked X. I was surprised by X. It was really good. The alligator scene is one of my favorite scenes because the alligator ate that girl. They ate Brittany Snow, and I'm still not over it. But but it was really good. Just seeing how crazy Pearl was at her old age, and she had a sex dungeon. I was so thrown off guard by it. Like, I was not prepared, and I don't know. something was just missing. Like not no, nothing was missing, but like it was just a great movie, and I love the '70s aesthetic, and it reminded me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it was a good movie and a good script, and it had some good moments. It was all like perfect, and I also put it at number two because that director was gonna fuck that old lady if given the chance. Like if she hadn't killed him, or was I tripping? Like you can't be down that bad that your girlfriend did a porn scene, but you finna have sex with this old lady because that's not just right. But Elion, what's in your second spot?
My second spot was actually is X. Like it was a really good slasher film, and it gives off Saudi vibes, but I just felt it wasn't really emotionally deep, in my opinion. Another thing I can say is just like, it's even though it had layers, it was kind of straightforward.
Elion, no, Jesus Christ. Come on, what's in your third spot?
My second spot is actually going to go to Pearl. I
Okay, now that I'm shocked about.
so I do like I really did like Pearl, and I think um again, like with Maxine and eventually for X, like Mia Goth, great across the board. Like no complaints or anything about her and what she kind of like went through with it. But there were a little bit of pockets within Pearl where I felt like there wasn't a lot really happening within it, and I do get it was kind of more like not like a bit more like a character study on like Pearl's character and getting inside of her head and like figuring out like how she got to the point that she was. But there are also some points within it where I feel like maybe a little more could have been going on with it, in addition to um lost my train of thought of it. I think there could have been a little bit more going on with it, and just due to the time period that everything was kind of happening in, some questions like obviously we're just gonna go unanswered with it, which is the film's fault. Like obviously it's just a reference in time for what we had going on, but I do like the movie. I just didn't like it as much as my first pick, which we'll get to.
Well, you can get right to it. What's your first pick?
If we take out the other two, we're just left with X. And
Goodbye.
X X for me is my number one pick out of all these. I really like um I really like X the most out of all these. I feel as though it was the most consistent of the three movies with what we were given. All the performances in it were really good. I felt like we got some good, like I would say, a lot of good character moments within X. Like we had the scene of them all like just talking about the adult industry and how it like in relationships and stuff inside the cabin. Like I thought that scene was really good. The scene of like Brittany Snow's character talking to Pearl before she got pushed in with the crocodile or the alligator, that was like a really good scene, and like the kind of conversation that they were having about it. And I just felt like I really liked the characters that we got within that movie. I thought everybody was pulling their weight like really well, and Mia Goth doing dual service as both Pearl and Maxine in it, like was dope. Because I think when I first watched it, and I think I mentioned this in the review, I didn't put two and two together that was her immediately until afterwards. And then I was like, oh shit, that was her doing both of those. So she was doing that double service like really well. And even before, we got to Pearl and saw like her backstory, we still kind of got some characterization about Pearl and like Howard within the movie, in addition to Maxine and the rest of the clan. So I think I think Pearl, oh, not Pearl, I think X gave the most consistent movie out of all of these. and I think that's why it's my number one pick.
Well, my number one pick is going to be Pearl. Only really because I went into this thinking Pearl was gonna be my least favorite because it was so bright and I knew it was a small cast in this one when the first one was kind of a had more cast going on, more than Pearl had. But I like instantly like locked in with Pearl, and it was those moments when it was just Mia Goth just like giving her performance, and like that monologue she had with Misty is what really like sealed the deal for me because that was perfect. Because you saw she gave you everything, and she gave you Pearl's whole like state of mind in that one scene. Like you got how lonely she was and how sad she was and how much she wanted to be loved, and like you got that she felt tortured and trapped by her parents, and then she had her husband there as her safe haven, but then he ran a fucking way to the war, and then she was back to feeling lonely and unloved and unsatisfied, and like it broke my heart, and it put the whole movie and the whole character in perspective. And then there was a scene when she's auditioning, and in her head she killed that. She was given the best audition in the world. Like she really thought she ate that, but you just knew that she didn't, and you knew that she wanted it so bad. And I don't know, like I she made me go back and forth to being like, okay, I know that Pearl is gonna be a crazy old bitch, but seeing this young Pearl, like you kind of felt sorry for her, and it kind of made me want to root for her. Like everybody gotta die. I stand with Pearl. That's what it was given at the end, and that's why it's my number one. What about you, Elion? Why is Pearl your number one?
Oh, sorry. I just well for me personally, I actually like just because it's very like I said before, it's psychological horror, and I really like the psychological background of it. But what I really like more about it is just like such a sad origin story. Just because we actually see this girl who has ambition, but obviously she's kind of like pushed like she's isolated to the point where she can't have dreams like she wants to, or she when she tries to she literally get, she's literally belittled, she's lonely. And why the most I liked about it is just like I can relate to like the feeling of like loneliness, or just like having like that kind of like just feeling like just that isolation part. But the thing that I really liked about this film, even though I do see it in the other films, it was just more of like, it like you just said, it was like a very happy go to kind of like color tone, but in reality, it just had such dark layers. Mia Goth, she did an amazing job, obviously playing Pearl. Uh, I think the other thing is just like you see this character, like the one thing I liked about it is how you could see though how she started and how she was like developing little by little, like little how like her mental health was just degrading. And that's what I liked the most about it. It's just like it just had texture. It just had a lot of layers.
Well, there we have it. There's our ranking for the X Trilogy. Join us next week as we review Piggy, a Spanish horror movie based off a Spanish short film. But that's for next week. Until then, good night.
If you like this episode, please be sure to check out some from the Haddonfield Horror Cemetery, where we've covered big franchises such as Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Saw, or one-off reviews like The Blackening or Hereditary. You can follow Haddonfield Horrors on Instagram and TikTok, where the host posts updates and mini reviews. Full episodes are available on several podcasting platforms, including Spotify, as well as YouTube. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe. The Haddonfield Horrors podcast is produced by Mark Smart, Tawan Griffin, and Elian Cordova, themed by Lethal Injection, and edited by Mark Smart.
The Haddonfield Horror Podcast is a letter to media production.
Should we do an intro?